Alex Shuriket presents my very emotional parody audiobook, Steamgelion! Roles played by Соня Иванов, Синзи Икари,
Marina Kalina,
Misato Katsuragi, Rimaka Gage, Ritsuko Akagi, Commander Ivanov, Gendo Ikari, Raya Enama, Rei Ayanami,
Hanka Litvinenko,
Asuka Langley,
Ali Katzman,
Aida Kensuke, Toya Suzuhara, Todzi Suzuhara,
Roma Kazi,
Ryuji Kazi. First season, 9th episode. On the first Monday after the defeat of Obamas, Comrade Kalina, as usual, returned home with the pilots after training. The pilots were noisily discussing the upcoming excursion to the Izhevsk arms plant, which was announced to them at school today. Comrade Kalina sent the pilots on the elevator and decided to look into the mailbox. And as soon as she opened it, a stream of letters pouring out of it knocked Comrade Kalina off her feet and covered her up to the very headdress. Having got out from under the rubble, Comrade Kalina pulled out the letter that got into her into her bra and looked at the indicated recipient. To the star for Comrade Kalinina. Raising her eyebrows in interest, Comrade Kalina sat down on a pile of mail and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter of thanks from one resident of Moscow B, who praised the result of the recent battle and asked to crush as many private houses of officials as possible. Having opened the second letter, the third, Comrade Kalina found in them similar warm words and requests. And as if in a gold rush, Comrade Kalina began to open one envelope after another. At this time, despite the end of the working day, Comrade Ivanov participated in a secret telephone conference with the agents from Smolny. "Let's continue, comrades," said the first mysterious voice.
Sir, we are extremely indignant at the blatant violation of the rules by our adversary. And we unambiguously expressed an official protest.
And we also warned the United States that after the victory is ours, we'll try them as war criminals. Comrade Ivanov allowed himself a question. Was there any response from the American side?
Was. The American side tearfully assured us that it would not happen again.
I fool. We have already blacklisted them as enemies of the people.
By the way, Comrade Ivanov, we support your proposal. And Raya really should be rewarded for saving the periscope.
Yes.
By the way, me should too.
As for Raya, unanimously. Now, comrades, let's discuss the proposals made by the third pilot on changing the rules for conducting training.
Definitely a great idea of young hero to use the second dice to create emergency situations.
Yes.
But we took the liberty of adding something.
Yes. An emergency situation will arise in case of the same number of points on both dice. For example, a 1-1 double could mean the inclusion of an anti-communist broadcast on the radio,
and reducing the attention of pilots by 2 points during the current turn.
The second said correctly. Now, comrades, let's discuss a change in the shape of the cells of the playing field. At about 7 o'clock in the evening, Anka, in her national costume, with the saber, came out of the elevator on the first floor of her house and froze in surprise at the sight of Comrade Kalina, sitting on the pile of letters and reading one of them with burning eyes.
Aunt Marina,
called Anka, putting her hands on her hips.
What are you doing here?
Comrade Kalina replied in a detached voice, and suddenly, as if coming to her senses, shuddered and looked at Anka.
Oh my Kremlin, I got too carried away reading. Even my boots are tarnished.
Comrade Kalina began to rake up those letters, which she had not yet had time to open, and asked.
Anka, where are you going?
Uncle Roma asked to help him buy something, so I go shopping with him.
And why do you have the saber with you?
Well, Aunt Marina, where did you see a Cossack without a saber?
Okay, the Cossack knows better. When I won't detain you.
Anka left the house, and Comrade Kalina dragged all the envelopes to Sanya's apartment in several times and continued to study them. Sanya at what time diligently did his homework, being sensitive to the testament of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. Taking a taxi, Anka quickly rushed to the meeting place as signaled to her under the 138th Street lamp on the avenue named after the third shot of our ship, and, having paid, left the taxi. Comrade Kazin was already waiting for her, looking around uneasily. Seeing Anka walking towards him, Comrade Kazin jumped with joy and rushed to meet her.
Anka, hi.
He said, stepping up to Anka.
I'm glad you came.
Glad to meet you, Uncle Roma. What are we going to buy?
Well, you know...
Comrade Kazin moved closer to Anka and whispered the answer into her ear. After listening, Anka nodded her head in understanding and assured.
Don't worry, Uncle Roma. We'll choose the best panties for you.
Comrade Kazin covered his mouth with his hand and began to look around in fear, saying,
Anka, what are you doing? Is it possible to speak so loudly about such things?
What's wrong?
Anka sincerely did not understand.
On Sunday, Aunt Marina and I went to choose for her, and we bought a super panties with a hammer and sickle right here.
Glancing briefly at the location of the sickle and hammer indicated by Anka on Comrade Kalina's new panties, Comrade Kazin became even more worried and grabbed Anka by the hand, hastily pulled her along, saying,
So, let's get out of here. And for now, no more words about underwear, please.
Somewhat later, when Sanya was already finishing his essay on the topic the connection between the shortcomings of fortifications and the capitalist formation of society, Comrade Kalina suddenly approached Sanya from behind and patted one envelope on her palm, sternly patted.
Well, my dear hero of the Soviet Union, don't go anywhere today. I will have a conversation with you and Anka.
What did we do wrong again? Sanya was surprised and turned around, but noticing from whom was the letter that Comrade Kalina brought, he swallowed and went cold. In the column describing the sender, it was indicated. Old and very wise teacher.
How did you understand?
Comrade Kalina inquired, ignoring the question. The task is clear, Sanya said without much enthusiasm. Oink Oink, wanting to support the owner of the apartment in a difficult psychological moment, rubbed himself against his leg. But Sanya did not feel better from this generous act of the animal, because Sanya was well aware of his sins in the field of education. So, until about 8:30 in the evening, Comrade Kalina was on duty at the front door. Sanya all this time was sitting neither alive nor dead. As soon as she heard steps behind the door with the tinkling of the saber, Comrade Kalina went out into the corridor and with a sweet smile said to retreated Anka.
Anka, you're back. Well, how's the shopping?
Oh, Aunt Marina!
Anka happily exclaimed, raising her thumb on her right hand.
We bought the most excellent underpants!
The underpants?
Comrade Kalina was dumbfounded.
Yes, the underpants for Uncle Roma.
Anka explained, pulling out the keys to the apartment.
Did he want you to help to choose an underpants or what?
Yeah, and what's wrong? You called me too?
Okay. Come visit us for a minute, please.
Yes, ma'am?
Anka wanted to immediately follow the invitation, but Comrade Kalina stopped her with a gesture and said,
Wait, leave the saber at home just in case.
Phew, why?
That's an order. Okay.
After a couple of minutes, Comrade Kalina ordered Sanya and Anka to line up in the middle of the living room and walked in front of them for a while, looking into the eyes of them. Sanya was drenched in cold sweat, and Anka looked at Comrade Kalina with incomprehension. Finally, Comrade Kalina stopped and said,
Comrades pilots, your old and very wise teacher appealed to me as to your commander with a complaint.
With what else complaint?
Anka flared up.
What an old stump!
Great talking.
Comrade Kalina said sternly and put her hands on her hips.
Explain why you, our hope for a bright future, you can say the stars of communism, failed the last exam in the history of the Communist Party.
To hell with your history of the party! In what year was Trotsky issued a party ticket? What was the name of the secretary of the first Congress of the CPSO? Am I not able to shoot the enemy without knowing all this nonsense?
It's part of our history.
Comrade Kalina barked, bringing her face closer to the face of Anka.
It's our duty to know.
My duty is not to retreat and not to surrender! Sashko, why are you silent? Yourself called this party history useless garbage!
I am... squeezed out Sanya, burning with shame in the face of the crumbling hopes for a bright future among the Soviet people.
So,
Comrade Kalina said sternly,
I announce my collective decision. There can be no question of an excursion to the arms factory. Every one of you must learn the history of the party.
What?
Anka roared and grabbed the air with her hands in the place where she had previously hung the saber.
Don't let me into the weapons factory!
That's right.
Inexorably confirmed Comrade Kalinina.
Do not until you pass the exam in the history of the party for 100%.
What grade did you have for this exam?
110%.
Here your certificate to see.
All information about me is classified.
Now we'll declassify everything.
Anka rushed to the window and opened it, he yelled.
Comrade Kalinina has panties with a sickle and...
Anka could not finish the declassification because Comrade Kalina covered Anka's mouth with the palm and dragged her back into the room.
Follow orders.
Barked Comrade Kalina, releasing Anka.
I will report to Comrade Ivanov. He can remove from piloting the robot.
You are a damned intriguer!
Anka answered and left, slamming the door. After spending almost a quarter of an hour in an embrace with her favorite model of a Kalashnikov assault rifle, Anka calmed down a little. And she even looked into the bucket where there was a thick book with the title History of the Communist Party. But when she spat in the direction of the source of knowledge vital for the communist and took up household chores. Around midnight, Anka climbed into her bed with Jules Verne's book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and read with great interest until sleep overcame her. It was a wonderful communist day. The young pilots, Comrade Kalina, Comrade Akayevich and Comrade Ivanov gathered in a special meeting room of the Undergrunker. They sat around a table on which there was a huge photograph of a flowing lake near Moscow Bay. Comrade Ivanov stood up and pointed somewhere in the center of the photograph and said, "Here." Comrade Kalina looked doubtfully at the place where the boss finger was pointing and asked,
Are you sure?
I am. And the local fisherman too.
Okay, but what do the radiotube computers say?
Comrade Akagevich got up and said, 50-50. Either it is where or it is not where.
So?
Comrade Kalina thought and nodded her head.
Yes, the chance is high. But what is the depth where?
Ray chuckled and allowed herself to remark.
Out, Marina. Don't you know how to read maps? Here's the icon, but almost a kilometer.
Comrade Kalina coughed, and Sanya goggled his eyes and asked a question. Why is there a whole kilometer of depth in this lake? Comrade Akakevich decided to clarify. Initially, the undergrunker intended to build in this place, but after digging the main shaft, they stumbled upon an underground river. This is how the lake was formed. An underground river? Sanya asked. When it's possible that he made his way along this river? Let's not rush into assumptions. Comrade Kalina straightened her collar and declared.
And let's rush to act. Comrade Ivanov, I must personally verify the presence of the enemy.
Your determination is commendable. Comrade Ivanov approved. What do you need for operation?
Besides some equipment, I will need reliable people. I would like to invite Alec and Tola.
Good, Comrade Kalina. Comrade Ivanov nodded. You can start. Calling at the school, where classes were still going on at the moment, Comrade Kalina pulled the chosen young man from the singing lesson and ensured their delivery to the entrance to the undergrunker. Having met her heroes, Comrade Kalina invited them to take passenger seats in the cab of the van full of equipment for the operation and got behind the wheel. The car started off and Alec, who was adjusting the camera, said happily,
Aunt Marina, I'm happy with our new joint work.
Tola, being in some dubious forebodings, muttered to the side.
And I'm not very happy. Be more fun, youth.
Comrade Kalina cheered up and, signaling to a gaping woman, leaned out the car window.
Are you tired of leading your jack?
Wow! Alec admired.
Aunt Marina is a real car enthusiast.
Having a heart-to-heart conversation about success in school, work and personal life, Comrade Kalina, Alec and Tola reached the necessary lake. It was cordoned off by soldiers of the Red Army to ensure the possibility for the Star soldiers to fight carelessly. Throwing back the back door of the van, which turned into a ramp, Comrade Kalina presented a solid wooden board for everyone to see. The board was emblazoned with the proud inscription, Navalny. Further, pushing the Navalny into the water with a slight movement of her hand, Comrade Kalina pulled out 2 oars from the van and looked at the young man with a smile. Tola immediately flared up and shouted,
I knew! What, today the steamship will chase after us!
No, it will not come down.
Comrade Kalina assured, chuckling.
Just take me to the center of the lake. No risk. Maybe.
Tola calmed down a little, and Alec took the oar and sat spellbound.
Comrade Captain Aunt Marina, with you, we are not afraid of our reefs or storms.
Alec, it's a pleasure to do business with you.
Comrade Kalina praised, and looking at Tola, she added,
Tola, do you think Anka will like a man who whines all the time?
Tola, instead of answering, grabbed the second oar, glaring angrily at Comrade Kalina. The boat set sail. Barely swaying on the gentle waves, the Navalny smoothly reached the desired coordinates. Comrade Kalina slowly put her scuba gear right on her uniform, put a mask on her face, and said,
So, comrades, congratulations on your participation in the particularly important reconnaissance operation. Now, hold me so I don't fall into the water and watch my signals.
The task is clear, Comrade Kalina.
Alec exclaimed, grabbing the camera and filming this historic moment. Comrade Kalina winked at the lens and, taking a breathing apparatus into her mouth, grabbed the underwater special binoculars and hung from the board, plunged into the water up to her collarbones. The boys grabbed the lady's belt and began to hold her. Just in case, we recall that to the greatest regret, Comrade Kalina's uniform included pants, not a skirt. So, a minute later, Comrade Kalina signaled.
She asks to go deeper.
Alec explained, and the boys allowed Comrade Kalina to dive another 10 centimeters. Another minute has passed.
Tola, we continue the dive.
And Comrade Kalina disappeared into the water surface already up to her chest. Exactly 33 seconds elapsed and the signal was repeated again.
I'm already starting to worry.
Alex said after Comet Kalina plunged into the water up to her stomach. But Comet Kalina did not stop there.
Out, Marina, are you sure?
Alec specified. Comrade Kalina confirmed that she was sure, and her hips hid under the water. Now the boys were holding her boots, and their worried faces were reflected in the boots.
Out, Marina, don't go crazy!
Alec exclaimed.
You are still so young!
Comrade Kalina insisted, and her knees disappeared into the water. From excitement, cold sweat streamed down the backs of the boys, but after another 2 minutes, the signal was repeated.
Out, Marina! This is the limit!
Alec shouted.
Out, Marina, don't!
And the young man had no choice but to follow the order. But at that moment, when only the lady's boots remained above the water, the boat tilted and turned over, shaking the passengers into the lake. All the equipment that was on the boat, including the movie camera, went to the bottom. But don't worry, unlike the equipment, the passengers of the Navalny knew how to swim. Moreover, they immediately grabbed the boat, which, having done its dirty deed, stood up again as it was supposed to. Having emerged from the depths, Comet Kalina released her mouth and swimming calmly said,
Thank you for your service. Is there a result?
Alec asked quietly, not showing his grief over the drowned camera.
There is. I managed to see it. And it's blue. It's definitely from the USA.
An hour later, the pilots, Comet Ivanov, Comet Kalina, and Comet Akevich again gathered in the conference room at the table. But the sailors of Captain Aunt Marina were not allowed there. The attack, Comet Ivanov announced.
For the first time.
Comet Kalina nodded.
But why does it sit at the bottom and not move?
Perhaps it's biding his time. And this is a great chance to capture an enemy machine intact. Comet Akevich squirmed happily in her chair and supported.
So exactly. Only intact, exactly intact.
Comrade Ivanov chewed on the pen a little and said, We can't send more than one Soyuz for this. And besides, only Soyuz AC can work underwater. Comrades pilots, who among you can swim? Raise your hand, please. Sonia and Raya threw up their hands in delight, and Anka lowered her eyes sadly. After reviewing the result of his poll, Comrade Ivanov decided. Anka, you will lead Soyuz AC. Comrade Kalina blinked her eyes incomprehensibly and looking at Anka, asked.
Why Anka if she can swim?
Because we don't need to swim, but we need to dive. And so it was decided. Having shown considerable promptness, the engineering troops, having driven many mobile bridges and ferries, built a huge platform on the lake. On it, they installed a no less gigantic winch, with the help of which it was supposed to send Anka's robot on underwater adventures. Moreover, to speed up the construction process, no electric motors were installed on the winch, and the winch handles were to be turned by 2 other Soyuzes. Thus, none of the pilots was left without participation in the operation. Before sending Anka to visit the fish, Comet Akevich took her to the locker room and demonstrated the diving equipment. Your robot is waterproof, Comet Akevich said and pulled out a communist red swimsuit from a locker. But if suddenly starts to leak, it will be more convenient to you. Anka frowned and yelled,
What is this shame? I'll be in my uniform!
Thus, perverts and pedophiles have lost the opportunity to see Anka half naked. And so, the Soyuzes carefully stepped onto the floating platform. Pushing off the shore, they brought the platform to the middle of the lake.
Galio, are you ready?
Comrade Kalina asked on the radio.
I'm always ready!
Well, let's start the main thing.
The Soyuz AC was hung on a hook, and two other robots began to rotate the winch, lowering the Soyuz AC.
I'm Jacques Cousteau!
Fervently exclaimed Anka, and her robot touched the water. The water calmly accepted the Soyuz AC. After there were already 100 meters of water above her, Anka asked,
Aunt Marina, and Uncle Roma is next to you again.
Comet Kalina answered,
Miss Buffoon will not appear here for a long time now. How are you?
I'm fine.
Don't you worry.
Why should I worry? Our cause is right.
Galio, we are proud of you.
The depth was growing and growing. The pressure on the body of the robot grew and grew. Something strange crackled, but Galio was calm and only looked out for the enemy machine. At this time, Sanya, turning the winch handle with his robot, noticed that a whole squadron of aircraft was circling in the sky.
Aunt Marina,
Sanya called.
Yes, Smo.
Why is the Air Force in the sky? Are they going to bomb us if something goes wrong?
You didn't guess. Izhetvat Akagevich promised that Anka would be dressed in a bombing suit, so we flew in to see it.
Galio snorted angrily and allowed herself a remark.
What kind of power swinked?
The half of the depth was past. Schools of fish swam behind the glass of the Soyuz AC cockpit, discussing what was happening. The steam through the flexible steam line was working properly. The winch creaked calmly.
600 meters deep.
Comrade Gagevich commented from the radio.
700. 800. Galio, what do you see?
I see perches and pikes.
Anka responded, leaning against the windshield.
Whoa, the mermaid swam! What a fool without a bra!
Comrade Ivanov started up excitedly at this moment, but he cowed himself and sat down again calmly.
Is the enemy really supposed to be here?
Comrade Karina replied.
Somewhere here, was it? Take a closer look. It looks like a Buffy skiff with manipulators.
There is nothing like it.
Finally, Soyuz AC was on the bottom. Gently meeting its muddy surface, the robot turned its body.
The enemy is not detected.
Anka reported, continuing to scour the underwater twilight with her eyes.
Wrong place or what?
Comrade Karina thought uncertainly aloud. And then Anka heard a roar behind her. Having sharply turned the robot, Anka saw that two hefty torpedoes were rushing in her direction.
Scoundrel!
Anka cursed, unhooking the hook and dodging her robot to the side. Torpedoes whistled past and exploded somewhere in the distance.
What is it, Galio?
Comrade Karina exclaimed anxiously.
He started to move, bastard! Does that mean I can destroy it?
From the radio came a heavy sigh from Comrade Gagevich.
You can.
She allowed.
Wait, you're unarmed.
It's easy to fix. Small, throw me the mace, please.
1 second, Galio.
Sanya responded and unhooked the mace from the belt of his robot and threw it into the water. Meanwhile, Anka dodged another torpedo attack, and this time she managed to notice the enemy robot that jumped out from behind the sunken pirate ship for a couple of seconds. The enemy actually looked like a huge spherical path escape with two manipulators.
Aha!
Anka exclaimed maliciously.
There you are, bastard!
Having overcome the entire water column, the mace lay on the bottom between the opponents, raising a cloud of silt. Anka took advantage of his cover and picked up the mace and rushed around the sunken ship on the right. Hearing the hit of the mace on the bottom, the enemy looked out to see what had happened. And seeing a curtain of silt in front of him, with affright he began to fire at it with torpedoes. Carried away, the enemy did not notice the Zeus IC that had flown to him from the left flank. Anka grabbed the dumbfounded enemy machine by the manipulator and, swinging as it should, slammed the mace on top of the enemy. But what was the surprise of Anka when the mace bounced off the enemy, whose body turned out to be elastic like rubber.
What the dollar is this?
Anka exclaimed indignantly and struck a new blow, but the enemy remained invincible, only desperately spitting torpedoes and trying to escape.
What is it, Galio?
Comrade Karina asked.
It's like rubber!
Anka reported, continuing to enthusiastically hit the enemy.
The mace bounced off like from a balloon!
Like from a balloon?
Comrade Karina was amazed.
Just like from a balloon!
Anka confirmed, and, suddenly thinking, she even stopped the beating.
Oh, a balloon! Now I will defeat him!
Anka, just don't do stupid things!
Comrade Karina warned anxiously.
Is it possible to do stupid things in the battle, Aunt Marina?
Count Anka and allowed the mace to fall to the bottom. Afterward, Anka deftly reached out with the robot's hands to the fitting connection to the flexible steam pipeline and, pulling it out, immediately inserted the fitting into the enemy's hole in the torpedo tube.
Was it just was here?
The enemy, who it seems did not like the Soviet steam, twitched, trembled and began to poof up rapidly.
Oh, now something will happen.
Anka said, looking at the Sam, who had already increased his diameter 3 times. And then this happened. The thundered underwater explosion drowned out all fish and even mermaids in the lake. The explosion also raised a great wave on the surface of the lake. Sanya and Raya barely stood on the swaying platform. Smugly answering all the disturbing requests on the radio, Anka began to connect her steam pipeline back. But for some reason, the fitting did not want to fall into its place. Anka had already begun to look restlessly at the pointer of the device showing the remaining pressure in the system of her robot. The pointer inexorably dropped to 0.
Come on, you bastard!
Anka exclaimed.
Get in, you dollar!
Galio, what happened?
Comrade Karina alarmed.
I can't connect the steam line back!
What? Grab the hook and gently!
I have no time!
Answered Anka, continuing her desperate attempts and seeing that she had only 10 seconds of pressure left.
Get in, you bastard!
And at this most chilling moment, the alarm bell rang. Anka woke up and abruptly sat up in bed, clutching her braid in her hand, which she pocketed at her back.
What?
Anka exclaimed offendedly, looking at her hair clenched in her hand.
It was a dream?
The jewel-worn book slipped off the bed and sprawled on the floor. Anka looked at the book and said with a sigh,
It remains only to forget.
"To be continued."